On Alter Ego, we discuss sensitive topics involving trauma and belief systems through an educational, ethical lens. Our intention is to bring understanding, openness, and curiosity, not sensationalism. Listener discretion is advised.
Okay. Very important content warnings for today. You do not have to take your headphones off, Jerry, because I want to give you the content warnings too. This entire episode will mention as topics suicide, suicidal ideation. There will also be mentioned as a topic, not as a graphic discussion, of alleged child sexual abuse, including ritualistic cult practices. There, as always, will be nothing graphic, but these, even just as topics, are of course very potentially activating. So if it's too much for you, please check out a different episode. We'll catch you next week. Take good care of you. And if you or someone you know is struggling, help is available. In the US, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or text HELLO to 741-741 for the crisis text line. If you're outside the US, you can find international helplines at opencounseling.com. And the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 800-273-8255. You matter. You are not alone. For 24/7 help, call or chat the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 800-656-HOPE and online.rain.org. That's RAIN, RAINN.org. Okay.
All right.
I want to say at the top that you and I always start our podcasts with the disclaimer that you read off at the beginning. And we make it a point to say that we don't want to sensationalize anything. We're here to, keep things ethical. Sometimes, yes, we find opportunities to laugh and find levity in our topics, but generally speaking, we try to be very level and not talk about things that don't really need to be talked about.
Right.
But I want to be very upfront that I may not do a great job of some of that today in terms of not having an opinion. I have been a little hyper obsessed with what we're going to talk about since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, the topic of today's episode is a predator. And I think she's dangerous. And so I will have opinions this episode. And I just want to acknowledge off the bat that I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I first learned about the topic of today's episode, which I realize I still have not said. I'm keeping you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, you are. I've been waiting for, several days.
I found out about her in 2018 when one of my best friends gave me the highlight reel about her controversy. I found and hungrily consumed this incredible Gizmodo podcast called The Gateway. And for anyone listening after today, if you want more of this, I cannot recommend this podcast enough. It's so well done. It's 6 episodes. I highly, highly recommend it. But today we're talking about Teal Swan.
I knew it. As soon as you said that, I knew it. I've watched the documentary.
You have?
About her, but it's been a long time. It's been like a couple of years.
Okay. Because I told Jerry in a message yesterday, I was like, it would take the wind out of my sails if you know what we're talking about. But I also knew that there's a good chance that you would know what we're talking about, because for anyone that's jumping into this episode as their first episode, Jerry is an actual psychologist. So she's allowed to have psychological opinions. I just throw them out because I can't get in trouble for them. So I want to be very clear that any opinions I express are my own, and anything that's not explicitly stated as fact is alleged. I'm not trying to get sued. But it's hard because since I have followed this for such a long time, I'm talking to you as my friend, I want to just jump in and start talking to you, but I'm going to try to follow my structured outline here to keep it in order. So let's talk about Teal. Teal claims to be a spiritual guru. She helps people process their inner trauma, but she began to collect a little bit of a body count around her followers completing suicide during her processes.
See, I've already forgotten about all of this. I don't know any of this. So this is, yeah, I'm already, yeah, okay. See,
Okay,
I wouldn't have even,
perfect.
okay.
Okay. So she has thousands of followers online
Mm-hmm.
and is a guru. But what's unique about her is that she's a guru in like an influencer space. She has workshops that happen all over the world. And she even certifies practitioners, which we will discuss later, and now offers a retreat center in Costa Rica.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Teal is said by her followers to have this ethereal sort of spiritual connection and is
Mm-hmm.
able to offer such incredible insight. And they call her a spiritual catalyst. She also claims to hold the Akashic records. Are you familiar with what these are?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Remind me.
So, the Akashic records is basically an idea that any thought that has ever existed is documented in this record. So it's sort of like a knowledge of anything that ever has, could, or will be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of something you can just download if you
Mm-hmm.
have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jennings Brown, who does the podcast, is wonderful because he at one point is like, well, okay, but you did say that you can't speak multiple languages. And wouldn't that count as something that's been thought? And she said, I've been really thinking a lot about why some things work and some things don't. So, anyway,
Mm.
but otherwise, she has the answer for everything. So, her opposers, on the other hand, and there are thankfully many, but I don't know if there are enough.
Enough.
Yeah, call her, instead of the spiritual catalyst, they call her the suicide catalyst.
Oh. Okay.
And I will say again at the top, I completely agree. I will make no effort to hide my opinions here. Let's get into why she has such a divisive sort of following and why it's so different from cults as we typically know them. Jennings Brown, who I just mentioned, that hosts The Gateway, says that he was actually sort of doom scrolling on social media during a breakup, as we all do. And he starts being served Teal Swan videos on YouTube. And this is a very big part of today's story because the way that I first came to know about her when my friend had told me about her is because she's an SEO master.
Mm-hmm.
And it's intentional. This is not something that she just sort of realized, oh wow, I'm doing this. It's all very intentional.
Targeted.
Yes, very targeted. And she really takes advantage of the algorithm and all of its sinister implications. So when he clicked into her video, because he was curious, because she's calling herself a guru, she is sort of a traditionally, I would say, attractive influencer that you might follow for lifestyle tips or hair routines. That's what it looks like, right? If you were to click
Mm-hmm.
into it. But instead, her Ask Teal videos often answer viewers' questions about anything from depression to how to deal with weight gain, which, of course, she says is a result of deep internal problems.
Oh.
And back when it was really popular, she even offered crypto advice. But she has one video, it's pretty popular, that's called What to Do If You're Hopeless. And I'm curious what you think some of her offerings might be. If you click on this video of hers, what to do if you're hopeless.
Well, based on the context that has been provided, I would imagine it's pretty abysmal.
Mm-hmm. As a therapist, though, yourself, what might you offer someone very generally
If
if
they're
you're
feeling
hopeless?
hopeless,
Yeah.
literally whatever we can do to provide sense of self. So things like finding joy, your interest, your rebuilding trust with your body and connecting
Mm.
with yourself and your
Well,
body
that's
and
all bad.
building your identity. Oh,
That's all bad because she says,
okay.
and this is a quote,
Uh-huh.
whatever you do, don't try to think positive thoughts. Don't write a single affirmation. And I want to remind you, this woman is not a mental health expert in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
She has no license. She's not a therapist. She's not a psychiatrist, nothing. And that becomes especially obvious when she says, quote, you cannot say that suicide is wrong without saying that death is wrong. Death is always a choice. She also makes frequency paintings that she claims can heal people just by being in their space. Real multi-hyphenate, this one. So we're going to dive further into her views on suicide later. But for some context here, people trust her despite her lack of qualifications because she's very open about having attempted suicide herself multiple times. And this is not coming from a place of judgment. I am just genuinely curious. From a psychological point of view, would you say that it's helpful to talk to someone who has attempted to take their life if you have suicidal ideation, or would it be more helpful to talk to a therapist?
Like they're not one and the same. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, definitely a person who is on paper qualified to hold someone in that space.
Yeah. And I think, trying to give any sort of benefit of the doubt here, I can see how someone might think that they would be more comfortable finding empathy from a person who can relate directly. But everyone, it's just like you can't measure someone's trauma and you can't put someone's trauma next to another person's trauma and go, look, it's the same. Right? You can't, just because I could say, I've had depression my whole life, and you could say, oh, me too. And we're going to have very different life stories.
Yeah. And if you really want to get into it, there are many different reasons why someone would not want to be earthbound. And I think that in and of itself, is it somebody who has a chronic illness and they're in constant excruciating pain all the time? Or is it someone who has it genetically, right? Like whatever genetically in their family, whether we want to call it a generational trauma, whether we want to call it a peer, that like chain reaction effect that when one teen in school.
So I will touch on this later, but
suicide.
it is scientifically proven that suicidal ideation is contagious.
Yeah, there's like it's a chain reaction effect. It provides some sort of, I don't really have the right wording here, but when you're in an environment where you see it happen and you witness it happen, it's more accessible psychologically, because then you see how everybody responds to it or just engages with it, reacts with it, right? There's just so much there. This is a very common thing. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked to come to schools to have interventions, whether it's when a student passes away by choice or by not choice. There's just you cannot blanket dying by suicide. It is so not a blanketable thing. It's so nuanced and people are so uncomfortable talking about it. Then we miss the point of actually having the nuanced conversations.
Yes. Agreed. Okay. So while I may feel that all of that is very dangerous for all the reasons that you just said, here's where I think that we do get to a place of being predatory. And that's in what I alluded to earlier, that she knows SEO.
Right.
She churns out a ton of content regularly. And just like how the host found her on accident, if people are struggling, if they Google something like, I'm in so much pain, or why am I depressed, or will I ever be happy? It doesn't take long before a Teal video is served up to you.
Oh my God.
This is on purpose, and she knows this. Back in 2018, I want to throw some numbers out here to make you very upset. She had a collective, this is 2018, she had a collective 55 million views across all of her content. Her digital strategy was deliberate and it was effective. Her SEO-driven titles frequently targeted search terms like, quote, I want to die, quote, how to stop being depressed, quote, healing from trauma. This meant that her videos often appeared at the top of results for people in emotional crisis. She speaks in these videos directly to the camera with a very calm, empathetic tone.
Yeah, I've seen clips.
And she's really big. This is kind of her major thing, is she presents herself as someone that understands when no one else does. She actually speaks in such a droning tone with like moving water backgrounds behind her that if you are susceptible to hypnosis, you actually could be hypnotized by her videos. And then, of course, algorithm amplification, right? This is how it works across the board. If you click on something, you engage with it, well, then you're going to see more of it, and you're going to see more, and you're going to see more, because the algorithm is like, oh, good, this is what you want to click on and watch.
And you're staying to watch the whole thing.
It doesn't even matter. Usually I think it's like anything beyond 10 seconds counts as engagement.
Whoa. Okay. I didn't realize that.
So she positioned herself as offering truth outside of conventional therapy, which made followers more likely to trust her over professionals, because she says there's a huge problem with the mental health field and that practitioners are just quacks repeating what someone else has told them. And I'm with you. I'm nodding at the first half. I'm like, yes, big problem.
She had me in the first half.
Big problem with the mental health field. Yes. But that doesn't mean that every qualified person you speak to is a quack. Now, some of them are.
There's a lot of bad therapists.
And you've even mentioned on the podcast before that some, even clients that you've had before, have come to you because they had a terrible therapist and they were like, oh my God, how do I ever trust therapy again?
Yeah.
That happens.
Absolutely. All the time. Oh, it's actually so distressing. I actually had the thought, this was day before yesterday. I remember I was locking my door and a little nugget just popped into my brain. And it said, they let anybody become a therapist. I hate to break it to y'all. There are not a lot of checks and balances. If you can get through grad school without doing anything, I'm going to say illegal. I've seen people do plenty of unethical things in grad school and heard about it, heard crazy stories. And they'll just give you a degree.
Well, and we're going to talk about one of those people later in the episode. Don't you worry.
God, okay.
She has also done a really good job of fostering online groups and hosting these retreats that give people belonging, especially appealing to those who felt isolated or traumatized. And she even says that she is safe because she understands she has the recipe for a cult. And because she knows that, you don't have to worry about her making one because she's aware. She knows that she has isolated people that are looking for community, that are all struggling with something, that need to feel accepted. But she's like, but for that reason, I'm very careful. But it's going to get worse. Don't worry. So she intentionally titled and tagged her videos with high volume search phrases that people in emotional crisis often use. Here are some examples of real video titles and variations that mirrored common Google and YouTube searches. What to do if you want to die, why you feel worthless, and how to change it. How to heal from trauma, how to stop feeling alone, what to do when no one understands you. And she was not guessing. These keywords match what people with active suicidal ideation or depression often type into search bars. So by aligning her content with those queries, she maximized visibility into people seeking immediate emotional help. So YouTube's algorithm rewards watch time and relevance. So her content surfaced in the top search results for mental health related phrases, sometimes even above professional resources and hotlines.
Of course.
And Jennings actually has a moment where he is like, okay, I know I was kind of doom scrolling, but like, what did I look up that led me to a Teal Swan video? So he actually went back to his history and he had just finished watching the MASH theme song, which for anyone that's not familiar with that show, the actual name of the theme song is called Suicide is Painless. So he has watched this song that he, of course, was looking up for a totally different reason. He just liked MASH. And because of the title of that song,
Shut the fuck up.
That was the like autoplay that happened next.
Oh my God.
And she's very upfront about this. She says
she is.
That a suicide hotline is useless. Yeah, she says, have you ever called the suicide hotline? It's a lot of, it gets better. Don't do it. And
she reminds me of those nurses that kill people.
Yeah, not far off, actually. Like an angel of death. Yeah,
that's
not far off at all.
Yeah, I was like, what are they called? There's a word for it.
She says that she's really able to face it head on. And so if someone instead searches, I just lost my mom, what do I do? Or I want to kill myself. These are examples that she gives in an interview. And she comes up, then there's going to be more success than if they called a hotline. There is no evidence. I want to be very clear. There's no evidence that that's true, that there's more success if you look at Teal. And in fact, the numbers show that the hotlines are very successful in helping people. Okay.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
an
first step.
interrupter. Yeah, just an interrupter of, you know how they say put guns in a gun safe, because it in case anybody is wondering, it only takes 7 seconds from the thought to do it to enacting. So if you can interrupt those 7 seconds, that's the magic, right? So that's why it's encouraged to put barriers in place.
Mm-hmm. Well, and something else to note that we'll touch on later, but it feels
Mm-hmm.
appropriate to mention now, is that even in the midst of an attempt, there is a part of that person that wants to live. No one is ever 100% suicidal or 100% not suicidal. This is evidenced by suicidologists. I'm not just like making these things up. So that's also important to think about. So that what Jerry just said about if you can interrupt it, that matters. And that no one's ever 100% committed to that 7-second act. So hold on to that. She claims, let me just jump into it here. She claims that she can see your insides. She can see your thoughts. She can see if you have a digestive issue right now. She can see if either something's not working inside of your veins that should be working. She can see your problems.
Mm-hmm.
And your thoughts. And so you can't lie to her. She knows everything. Literally, she knows everything. And that also means that she's very capable of, well, she's capable of anything, obviously, but a way that she sort of furthers this claim is when she hosts these workshops, she says that energetically she doesn't make any mistakes. So if she sees your energy and she reads your aura, because she can do that too. And if she looks over at me and she sees my energy and she reads my aura, she might bring us both on stage and say, you two are supposed to be friends. And maybe I trauma dump on you a little bit. And then you're like, oh my God, I have such a similar story. And then everyone claps. Everyone's like, oh my God, she did it. And that happens. I think that example's in the podcast and not in the documentary. This guy comes up on stage and he is just like, I'm very lonely. I feel like things are getting a little bit better since I found you, but I'm just very alone. And she pulls someone else up, and it's the same sort of thing of like, oh, well, I'm actually the child of an affair. And then they got married, and the other girl goes, oh my God, me too. And everyone claps. And it's like, she did it, Teal did it. And of course, Teal's sitting there like, of course, I know. But statistically, when everyone in the room is there because they have trauma, it's not, you get it. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely, it is funny. That's the first thing I thought. I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder why all the people in the room who have all come together to follow this person would have similarities, you know?
Yeah. And that's going to come up a lot. So I mentioned that she calls herself the spiritual catalyst, and her followers see her that way. But I also mentioned that she would become the suicide catalyst to a lot of people. So Teal is very vocal about losing her first client to suicide. This client, and again, I'm saying client, she is not licensed to do anything. She's just a spiritual guide. She says that she was her friend. So I want you to also consider that. She describes her name was Leslie. She describes her as being miserable. And Teal told her, we are either committing to life or we are committing to death. You have to choose. And Teal says that when Leslie was finally honest in answering that question, the answer was, I'm not committing to life. And Teal says, this is fine. She said, there's nothing a healer can do for that low of a vibration. So basically, it's out of my hands. She chose to commit suicide, but don't worry, Jerry, because just 2 days later, she was reincarnated.
As who? As what?
I don't know. I don't know if she said, I don't know.
She didn't even have like a full, she wasn't like, oh,
she's a beautiful bird. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say bird.
The thing that
What?
The thing that made me scream when she said this, there's nothing any healer could do for that low of a vibration. I think there's something that a psychiatrist could do for that low of a vibration. I think there's something a therapist could do for that low of a vibration. And of course, this is me coming from a place of, while I don't love big pharma, I do acknowledge that I have been on antidepressants in my life. I've been on anti-anxiety in my life. I'm on anti-ADHD medicine, and it helps me. And I do not feel drugged out, as Teal says. I don't feel that I suffer I don't feel that I have a problem with relationships or that everything in my life is empty because of that. But that's what she says will happen if you choose medication.
I have so many things to say.
Go ahead.
I will. Okay. This is a very generalized statement that is based in my opinion. In order to survive a society that is built around exploitation, most people have to lean into some sort of assistance, whether that's something like medication, whether that's something like developing some sort of stuff that helps you survive, like psychologically. It could be quite literally anything. I'm not going to name any specifics here, but I have never seen a case where someone is using a substance, whether it's prescribed or not, where I'm like, oh, you could, that really just doesn't make any sense. You could do it without it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, we are not supposed to be, as human beings, living like this. I'll keep it at that. I feel very passionately that it is a symptom of our environment that so many people, I mean, it's just the cog, right? It leads us to need the medication. The medication keeps us going, we're more profitable. Like, there's just so much I could say here, and I'm not going to go too far into it because I'm sure most people understand what I'm saying, but I just feel so passionately that it is never an individual condition that you need assistance. This is a communal issue. It is a societal issue. It is never individually on you if you need any kind of assistance.
Well, and even in your sleepwalking episode, we touched on the fact that there may be times that you're on the wrong medicine.
Mm-hmm.
There may be times that you need to adjust things, certainly. And listen, as someone who's been there before, it is, yes, a huge pain in the ass to have to go, okay, let's try this. Okay, let's adjust this. But you know what? The reward is worth it, because when you get to a point that you're like, oh, I'm functioning like a normal person, it doesn't feel like a task to brush my teeth.
Right.
I feel motivated to get out of bed and do whatever I have to do and then some. That's worth it. And anyway. So
I'm like I am like
it's
holding on to I'm holding on to the guardrail of like keep holding it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going to get worse for you. And I think you're going to have to navigate more of that of like, well, how do I, what does I say? So Teal says that she's the only one with the balls to address suicide, and that psych, like you, Jerry, and hotlines do nothing. She also says, quote, it feels fantastic to die.
Because she's done it. She knows.
Well, and it gets worse. So the way that she sort of spins this and sells this, right, is that suicide is like a great reset button because you get to come back, you get to reincarnate. And this is something, just a quick little aside, I've talked about this before with you, I think just in our friendship life, that it concerns me so much how not just from Teal Swan, but I think there's this misconception across media and everything else for young kids that don't understand the finality of death, that they also start to kind of feel that like, oh, it's a reset. Things are really bad for me. If I do that, I'll like respawn, right? And whether reincarnation is real or not, ending your life does not reset anything. So, moving on, I have never in my adult life considered taking my life. But Teal would tell me that subconsciously I have been thinking about it. She would tell me that it's not on a conscious level, but that I am thinking about it. And that here's what I need to do. Quote, and please, everybody listening, please do not do this. Quote, lay on the floor and consciously think about it. Picture it. Every grisly detail of how and where you want to commit suicide. Now, as someone who just was able to say, in my adult life, never wanted to do that, already probably going to put me in a pretty weird headspace if I were to do this because I'm following her advice. But now let's imagine that someone with suicidal tendencies has just been told to lay on the floor, picture it, and imagine every grisly detail. We think that's a good idea, therapist Jerry?
I'm so nauseous. I'm so nauseous.
And like I said, suicidologists and experts in that field are very clear that the evidence shows that humans are never 100% committed to life or 100% committed to death. So even in this exercise where she's basically having you do this so that you can figure out if you're committed to life or not, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. What it is, though, is dangerous. Okay. In her documentary, you mentioned you watched it. I did too. Called The Deep End. There's is that the one you watched?
I think
A lot
so.
of water stuff.
Honestly, I can't even remember. I just remember
That's
her
fine.
piercing eyes.
Yes, very blue.
It's just like, ugh.
There's a recorded live event where she brings people up and she gives them advice, basically, and it's pretty standard. And some of it's fun, you know, like how she gave one man at a live event a friend by matching him vibrationally. And like I mentioned earlier, yes, in the scene where she brings two women up and they learn they're both illegitimate children of an affair that resulted in marriage. And of course, the audience is like, oh my God, she's amazing, right? It's incredible. But in the same setting, there's a woman who comes up and she says she just can't find motivation to do anything. And again, I want to say that I have felt that too. I think many people can relate to that, where, you know, there are seasons of your life where it's like, I don't want to brush my teeth. I don't want to get dressed. I think that I'm fine to just rot here.
Especially when the seasons are transitioning. Like, well, right now you and I are in early November, and I have not stopped talking about what's called October slide, where it's like you're experiencing that
I'm having a hard time.
significant slip slide down into winter.
Yeah.
And let it be known, again, societally, we don't acknowledge that our bodies are meant to slow down in the winter, and our whole, we just don't acknowledge any of that stuff culturally, at least in America. Anyway.
Well,
yes,
and Teal is certainly not going to acknowledge that either, because
of course not.
She asks her, she says, okay, so what's it going to take to make you happy? And she says, nothing. That's her answer. She says, you know, I can't think of anything that would make me happy. And again, I think we've all probably felt that at some point where like, I can't think of anything that would fix me, but that's usually when we would reach out for help. But instead she's sitting up here talking to Teal, and Teal says, okay. She says, then why are you still here? And the woman says, yeah, why did I come up here? And Teal says, no, she says, why did I come up here? I guess I'm just trying to figure out. And Teal says, no, why are you still on the planet? And the woman freezes. And you can see that she is like so shaken by that question. And Teal, of course, says that, look, none of us get out of here alive. And if you know that, what would you do different? And you're faced with a choice and you have to make it. And people are applauding, but this woman just falls apart. And I'm watching this woman and I'm like, hello? And she's like, okay, thanks so much. And that's it. That's her helping her. That's it. That's how she leaves that woman. And it's just really sickening to witness that she basically just, here's this woman that was in a vulnerable place of saying like, I am not doing good. I can't think of anything that would make me happy. I'm having a really hard time. And Teal says, so why are you even here? That's the advice.
I can't decide. I'm like masochistic, sadist, nihilist, right? I'm like rotating through all of these labels for her amongst many other things that
I can tell you all the things that she's been diagnosed with. Don't worry, but keep going.
Also, I have to say, again, lots of just like generalized nuggets here. Your brain is not made to be happy. Your brain is made to stay alive. And I don't understand. I mean, I do. I get it. I understand. It makes sense. You zoom out, you look at everything. The concept is to be happy, whatever. It's a whole nother episode. But not being happy, it's like, first of all, how did we get here? Very westernized thing, I feel like. But surviving is what your brain is programmed to do, not be happy. And so for her to be like, if you're not happy, you should just go and
leave the planet.
Leave the planet is madness.
Yeah. And yet,
if you're not happy in this hellscape,
yeah, welcome to humanity.
what?
I know. And I'll tell you, also, and just in the vein of being honest, there are so many moments, and there have been since I started kind of looking at all this in 2018. There are so many moments where I'm faced with discomfort because I'm thinking, oh God, I hate that, like, I kind of agree with this thing. Or like, I also kind of agree with that thing. And this idea of like high vibration, low vibration, and that your vibration is contagious. I think I'm with a lot of this metaphysical stuff, right?
I know she does say some things that I'm like, it's really weird. She's got me at the first 15. It's like 15%. I'm like fully sold. And then the
Yes.
other 75 is like,
It's like, what?
Ah, get me off this
Well,
ride.
yes. And I know that I've had friends before that all they did was just sit in their depression and complain and complain and complain and complain. And they never did anything, or they would take medication for like a week and go, it doesn't matter. And so they would stop. And that's very difficult to even for people that you love and care about. It's very difficult to do your own survival and then also support and coddle them when what you want to say is figure it out. I'm saying that's what I want to say. Jerry's a therapist. She wouldn't say that. But
Like,
Jerry's like, cannot relate to this. But that's how I have felt, right? Of like, so what, now what? You have a problem, fix your problem. Right. So there are pieces where I don't agree with her saying, why are you still on the planet? But I can agree with the sort of intensity of like, okay, so nothing's going to make you happy. So like, what's your question? Like that sort of thing I can almost get behind. But then it's like, no, Teal, stop. No.
Yeah.
And yet she's got people saying, you saved my life in her meet and greets. One man has a tattoo of her on his arm, and she's so unfazed and like nothing's behind the eyes with this sort of stuff. And so her skipping ahead a little bit, but the retreat that she would go on to have in Costa Rica is, according to her, shamanic land. And that means that it's very high vibration, but it also reveals your demons. And of course, it's in the jungle, and there's an easy comparison to make to Jim Jones. And funnily enough, she actually does mention him in one of her videos because she says that she didn't believe for a moment that he was hurting anyone. She says, and he didn't believe he was hurting anyone. He truly believed the only way that those people could be free was to die. Okay. Anyway, the retreat is called Philia, and it's for the most part a pretty tranquil retreat, except for when it's filled with blood-curdling screams.
Okay, I can kind of get down with tribal screaming though.
Well, except that's not why they're screaming.
What?
No. Your sweet little face. You went, what?
What do you mean?
You're gonna love this. All right, let's go. With some work that Teal is doing. We just took a collective deep breath like we're in a yoga class. We didn't mean to. Sometimes you have to play the part of deep despair, and that could include screaming. And in episode 3 of the Gateway podcast, Jennings is doing an interview, and you can't even focus on what he is saying because all you can hear are these horrible screams. And the person being interviewed is a little shaken, but mostly just points out that, well, Jennings, you're triggered. This would be a good time for you to process this. You should start some shadow work to figure out why you're so triggered by the screams. So let's talk about this process. Let's talk about this shadow work. Yeah, hold that thought for just a second. The completion process, which is Teal's little trademark.
Is that what she's trademarked as completing suicide?
No.
Oh.
Nope. Well,
okay.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The completion process is when you work through your childhood trauma. And he was encouraged to do it, but he says, I'll try it later, but not here.
Yeah.
So the people screaming are actually doing a therapy method of Teal's where you are intentionally possessed while you play out the trauma of other people's family members. So Teal says that channeling can be done with the living or the dead. And if she says, I'm bringing in your dead mother, it's literally your dead mother. I'm working with her thought form, and it's very dangerous. And one of the most powerful tools that has ever existed, according to her. And let me equate it to you, because this is how she would tell you, Jerry, that you could use it in your life.
I'd love to talk to her.
She would tell you that, let's say I'm your client, and I come in and
Teal
I'm
is telling me
struggling.
this.
Yes.
Reframe. Okay, so you're
So
Teal
let's
talking to me.
you're doing the completion process, right?
I'm doing the completion
Or you've
process.
gone through it. I guess you've gone through it at this point, but I'm your
Okay.
client. She would say, you don't have to talk to Heather and ask her what's going on. You can pull someone in off the street. You can have them be her brain, and the brain can tell you what's actually going on. And I'm not pulling this example out of thin air because she actually has a doctor, a surgeon at this retreat that's gone through the completion process. And Teal is like, I'm so proud of her because now in her surgery, she could pull someone in off the street and have them. She's like a gastroenterologist surgeon. She can have someone come in off the street and they could play that or become that patient's organs and tell her what's wrong. And it's going to save her so much time.
This is so fucked up.
Oh, would you like for it to get worse?
No.
Well, too bad. Um,
And people, and you know what? It's one thing for someone to be completely, I guess, volatile, but it's another thing for people to enable it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I know what you're saying. I would say it's also pretty bad to have people pay $2,500 to come and do this. Actually, it's like 5,000, but if you're willing to share a room with somebody, it's 25.
Oh my God. People, let me. Just because something is expensive does not mean that it's good.
The completion process, it's a book. She's written a book on how this works. And in the book, she claims that she started designing it when she was 13. And it's a soul retrieval process, and you're going to undo trauma.
Okay.
And you will go against psychology because it is so debated if people should even re-experience trauma. And you, I'm pretty sure, just told me this yesterday that you encourage your clients not to, right? You don't have to relive it.
I encourage. It's so. How do you want my thing now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My spiel about this is maybe different than other therapists. I feel like now we're finally getting to the point where it's not as commonplace, but so many people encourage as therapists or experience or think this is what they're supposed to do because they see stuff on TV or they hear people's stories about being in therapy, whatever. There is this generalized expectation that going to therapy means digging up every traumatic thing that has ever happened to you and processing it. Now, I mean, psychoeducation, any type of, there's a lot of evidence that shows that that is actually incredibly harmful to do that. You could come in to see me and never tell me what exactly it is that you experienced, and that is okay. What matters is what is affecting you in the day to day, how it's affecting you, and how can we help you rebuild trust with yourself, with your body? How do we find regulation? How do we find, there's so many different ways to do this. And that is why, I mean, if you just imagine, right? You go, and I'm sure many people who are listening to this have been to therapy, and maybe a lot of you haven't. It's a privilege and it's not very accessible anymore. So I get that too. Point being, imagine you go to therapy, or if you've had this experience where you go in and you just unload all of this stuff. Sure, there are ways that it can help. You can help you feel alleviated that someone else knows or whatever, right? What is that doing? You're re experiencing it, you're re engaging with it, you're reliving it, you're re traumatizing yourself. And now you have someone in front of you who is enabling that to happen. And it's just locking in so much because you're not safe if you're just re experiencing everything over and over and over again. And really, what winds up happening a lot of times is therapists inadvertently encourage dissociation, and then they misinterpret that as regulation. It's like, oh, you don't feel bad about you don't feel that, and it's like I could keep going in this, and there's a lot of nuance here, and I don't want to overgeneralize, But this is, again, if you've done something like EMDR is really popular right now. And if you've done something like EMDR, that is why your therapist checks in with you and sees where you're at. I even think that maybe even some EMDR therapists get it wrong, and that what's happening is dissociation. You have to be so acutely aware of what is going on with someone's demeanor while they are reprocessing something. Because if you see a glimmer of dissociation, you're to gently tap out, find safety, back away from it, and try an alternative. Or I mean, I could quite literally keep going. I am so passionate about this because there are so many people who wind up just completely quite literally re-traumatized and terrorized in therapy. And a lot of therapists think that that is the way to do it, and it's just not. And there were times whenever I was younger and a therapist, and I thought that that's the way that therapy was supposed to go. But thank God I have really good supervisors and a really good supervision group, and like really incredible resources. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Well, your 2 cents is a perfect segue into actually multiple pieces of this, because everything that you just laid out, I would have eventually asked you to lay out kind of how you felt. So this works out really nicely.
Great.
But as far as the trauma piece, let me go ahead and tell you why you're wrong. According
and you're wrong. Wrongo.
According to Teal, once you relive it, you can start to resolve it. So everything that Jerry just said, the opposite is what Teal says. She wants you to find the discomfort, sink into it, and really focus on when the very first time you ever felt that feeling was. Invite that memory to then surface and be present with what comes up no matter what.
It's so close to EMDR.
It is, except for very broken, because she says, quote, by mentally making changes to the past, it causes mental changes to our present, like a puzzle piece going into place.
She's almost describing stuff that is actually true.
But it's like quilted together to make this sort of Frankenstein's monster of practicing, because with EMDR, the idea is that you want to kind of find where that stimulus is and what it comes from, and then kind of heal that broken part of you, not to go to that place and try to change that it ever happened to begin with, and then see what else comes up. And oh boy, are we going to get into that in a minute.
You know what it's making me think of is having a corrective experience, except if you were to go and do it that way, psychologically, it feels like just this giant dismissal of all of the parts of you that experienced the trauma. And then that, okay.
Oh, girl.
Yeah.
Oh, girl. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to hold on to that for a minute.
It's
so hard for me to stick to my outline because I want to just be like, okay, well, guess what?
I'm stim doodling over here. I've got this big giant doodle I'm just working on.
She gives a lot of warnings at her retreats because she says that you are going to go deep. You're going to go so deep, Jerry, that you could wind up ostracized by your family.
Now she's okay. Okay.
You could realize that you married the wrong person. You may regret that you have children.
She's just doing all this implication to manifest this for people so that they actually will think this. That's crazy. God. Okay.
You have no idea how right you are. And you will make massive changes that will affect everyone and everything in their life. Okay.
I have a really off-the-wall question here.
I'm ready. Give it to me.
Do we think that she's dated anybody?
She's been married 3 times. So before she she has a child.
Oh my God.
I can get into that too. We can sidebar some of this stuff. So before she gains a platform where people listen to her spew out this garbage, she's a kid in Logan, Utah.
Okay.
Which is a very Mormon area. And she's outcast because she isn't Mormon. And because according to her, she's so different.
Well,
she says she realizes very young that she can do things that her peers cannot. She can see apparitions and hear color. And she's incredibly sensitive to sound. Same. And especially because all sound has color too. She can see auras. And I want to pause to say that synesthesia is a very real thing. Like she could totally see in like colors can have like, yes. And hypersensitivity is very common, but still she's different, right? When people are clapping for her, she can see that sound. And her mom sees that she's different and she's overwhelmed. So she brings her to therapists and she brings her to doctors.
Oh, it all makes sense now.
And it's not working, according to them. According to Teal, in going to these doctors, she received, quote, every single diagnostic: schizophrenic, bipolar, and borderline. And I'm just going to move right past that and continue. So as a teen, Teal is already having suicidal ideation. She's attempting to end her life. And so her mom winds up finding this healing center in China where the healer is a master of Qigong healing. And I want to be clear that I have no qualms with Eastern medicine. I'm first degree Reiki. I believe in energy work. I'm happy to be crunchy. I was going to I was going to an acupuncturist, and she even suggested that I look into some like Qigong videos and try to like move some energy out of these places. And so I'm fine with that. I'm fine with all of it. This is not a judgment here, but two things can be true, right?
That's the tagline for today's episode.
Yes. And I believe this next piece of her life story was not healthy for her, even though she says that it changed her life for the better. And I'm curious your take on it. So the intention of this clinic is that
How old was she?
Around this time, she was like 11.
Oh.
She was like 11 or 12, I think, at this point.
Wow. Okay.
Because this was before she was a teenager. The intention of this clinic is that it takes terminally ill patients and heals them with this Qigong energy work. And Teal's mom contacts them and says, look, I know my daughter isn't terminal, but we're out of options. She's trying to end her life. So maybe she was like a young teen. Sorry, she's like maybe 13, 14. And they respond that, well, okay, ending your life is a terminal problem. So we will accept her. She can come here. So apparently the practitioners here are all orphans. They were handpicked by this guy to have special gifts. It sounds to me like X-Men. And as Teal and her mom tell it, as soon as he's introduced to Teal, he says, you have very powerful gifts, but they are very hard to live with. And to her, that's very validating.
Sure.
And it also reinforced this feeling of being very special and being very different and being very chosen. But of course, when she comes back to Utah, it feels worse than ever now because she's had this taste of acceptance and understanding and this validation. And now she's back, right? Gone. She's back where everything sucks. Mm-hmm. But she eventually finds a new agey metaphysical store where she becomes a kind of VIP. Mm-hmm. And it's here that she finds stateside acceptance and starts gaining a bit of a following as this very in tune spiritual guru. And so people are like, oh my God, you have to go to Teal. You have to see Teal. You have to talk to Teal. She's amazing. This is about the time when she starts making her frequency paintings. She is, doing energy healing for people. Mm-hmm. And all of that. So
it's so funny for me to be like, okay, what things do I say and what things do I not say? This I feel comfortable or okay saying. I have met people that remind me of her. Mm. Like I have met people in the field that as you're describing this stuff, I'm like, yeah, I know that person. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I used to work with that person that carries that same energy,
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and she, at one point too, when she had been institutionalized for a stint, she did some art therapy. Mm. And she still has these collages and they were very like bloody and violent.
She said this person is a quack.
Yeah, right. So
you said that her stuff was really bloody and violent?
Yeah. And we'll talk about why that is. But before I kind of get into that piece of her puzzle, what's your take on uncovered memories?
Say more.
So do you believe that I could have a trauma that I have suppressed so deeply that with enough focus and sort of meditation and shadow work, I could find that suppressed memory and then bring it up with great clarity?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not claiming to know the answer to that question because I don't know that it could be so definitive, but I will say I have never experienced either my own personal shadow work and on my own parts work in my own therapy, whatever we want to call it, or as a clinician helping someone else through this process. As a matter of fact, the only times I have witnessed or even myself experienced memories come up that are kind of buried that at some points can be verifiable or not, right? Because our brain does funky, weird things,
Mm-hmm.
is when it kind of does this like plop in thing. It almost feels like an interrupter or kind of like a, you don't go looking for it. It just kind of happens and hits you and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, what is that? I did never knew that was there." But it's oftentimes can
It's usually
be,
very like passive.
it's, yeah, it can be because you're in therapy doing deep work, or it can be because something happened that activates it or triggers it or whatever, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it could be in your conscious awareness, or it could be because sometimes it's pre-verbal, so you don't even have the words, right? There's many different layers to this, but I've never seen where you go digging and you get there and you find it. It's always been, it kind of like comes to you, for
And
lack of a
I
way,
mean,
better way to put it.
I never in like a psychological place have had that. The only time anything like that's ever happened to me is if I see something nostalgic and I'm like, "Oh my God, I forgot that I watched that show when
Yeah.
I was a kid."
Yep.
That just uncovered a memory, right?
Something with the senses. Yeah.
Yes, but I've certainly never meditated or thought or gone deep or whatever, and all of a sudden I'm like,
You found it.
"Ah,
Yeah.
I forgot that this horrible thing happened to me."
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I asked you that, I didn't expect you to have a definitive, and that was intentional because it's an incredibly debated topic in
Yeah.
psychology. Mostly because we know for a fact that memory is just
It's
not,
not reliable.
it's not reliable. It's why people are such bad witnesses in court cases, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if we ended this call now, would Jerry be able to tell me what color shirt I was wearing, or if my
Mm-hmm.
hair was up or down? I mean, these things that we just don't really think about. So
Mm-hmm.
Teal believed, allegedly.
This is just like cropping allegedly after everything you say.
Yeah, and I want to be really careful here, and this goes into why I messaged Jerry last night, and I had a sort of pointed but vague question, and this is why. So we'll get into that in a second. But
Okay.
Teal believed that she was abused as a child, and
Oh.
she often, quote, helped her followers discover that they had also been abused as children.
She is just this whole thing is just her projecting onto everyone. Oh my god.
Often by a parent. And so one of these people was the first friend of hers, Leslie, that we talked about, that ended her life. Teal helped her uncover a memory of being abused by her father as a child.
You can literally hypnotize people into like, look, just all right. Everybody, to put your tinfoil hats on. This is gonna sound out there. A little quick Google search. You could even look on the well, I don't know anymore if it's there or not, but used to, you get on the internet and look up CIA documents around hypnotism, around
Oh,
projection, around, I mean things like this where it's like it is not, it is widely known that you can implant a false memory into somebody.
ding, 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 ding. This is what I wanted us to get to.
Okay.
Ding, ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. Because ding-a-ling-a-ling. This is why I'm on a yoga ball. I'm like, all right, let's get to it. So Teal herself claims she was abused as a child. While her parents were so overwhelmed and didn't know what to do with her before they took her to China, this man came to her parents and said, "Oh, I know what to do with her. It's not strange to me that she can, see auras and do all these things, talk to spirits. Let her come with me on the weekend and I'll help her deal with this." And he's almost 70 and she's like 12 years old. And she says that her parents don't think that this was strange at all.
Oh God, this is upsetting. Okay.
But yes, but I let me go into this whole story and then let me unpack some feelings. So she later writes about being raped at age 6 and being put into a pit in the backyard
Oh
that he dug,
my
and she had to stay there for hours.
God. Okay.
And that if she told anyone, her family and her horse would be killed. Another time, she's assaulted. She says he picked her up by the throat with one hand. I want you to just think about that. And another time, she was blindfolded and given an injection in her arm She says that she was kept drugged with ketamine, but she writes all of this when she's 17 after being admitted to the psych ward, as she says, after a suicide attempt.
Okay.
And that's when she does her art that reflects her emotional state, and it's a very bloody collage. And so she says that it happened from age 6 until then, so from 6 to 17. And after the suicide attempt, once she's out of the hospital, she drives to her now manager's house, Blake, who was her friend, and he kind of took care of her, bandaged her up. They bonded, they fell in love. That was a question you had earlier. Before we get, though, to that piece, I want to talk about what she said. And I want you to also know that her claims are going to get more outlandish. We're not done with that yet. In her first book, she dedicated it to this man that she says did all these things to her. She calls him Doc. And even now, she says that despite everything that he did, that she learned so much from him, that everything that she knows about quantum physics is because of him, because he was a genius. He was brilliant. Everything she knows about energy work is from him. And Jennings actually finds him and interviews him. And he says, nothing inappropriate ever happened. He said, we may have hugged, but we were always clothed. And of course, Jennings is like, okay, well, it's kind of a weird thing to say. My takeaway was like, I don't want to dismiss that perhaps she was abused. I would never do that, no matter how terrible of a person I think she is. I do wonder if how that being put in a pit for hours every day, if that could be real. And there's more to this, which we'll get to later. She'll go on to claim that actually he was the head of a satanic cult. And he personally sacrificed 5 children that she witnessed, and that she also was used as bait to bring more children into this satanic cult, including one child from Mexico, that all of these, satanic rituals occurred, and that she would have to go and do this like every night and then kind of sneak back into her house and go to bed and then go to school like a normal kid, and that nobody had any idea.
You're probably going to think that this is what you were referring to in your
So I'm referring
voice
to
note?
of like, can something be true that she was abused? But saying, I'm in a satanic cult and I had to lure these children that he then burned on a stake. Could that piece be just her trying to be like, isn't that so special and amazing?
This is probably this is one of those moments where I'm like challenging my when I tell you I have heard some things that are unbelievable that have happened to people. And this goes back to my voice memo that I sent you last night, right? Of I never focus on if something is true or not. My this happened this what my brain wants to do with this information is say, okay, well, if that really did happen, that would explain why she is so disturbed, right? I'm like, oh, there's the reason. And I'm like, wait, no. I want to make all these connections and I want to do that. And also, she's not a client, right? So it's like, I don't want to get all my like wires crossed here. And so there's this interesting thing happening where I'm like being ethically considerate, but also like I'm not at work right now. Do you know what I mean?
Does it make a difference if I tell you that she had a therapist who was known to implant memories of satanic cults into her clients?
What? Wait, what are you saying?
Okay.
Wait.
Okay. I'm gonna put you on a pause right there.
Wait.
And we're gonna get to that in a minute. So
What?
So before we get there, I also want to point out that something you said is really interesting. You said that you don't focus on, is this true or not, but you focus on, let's address the feeling. And something very, very interesting, going back to like how she's almost doing real work, but it's like wrong and dangerous.
Yeah.
She makes it a point when someone is uncovering memories that she even says, I tell them, I encourage them not to focus on whether or not it's true, but to focus on the feeling. The problem, though, being that when these people are uncovering memories of being molested by their parents,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going, what if that's not true? But how they get to that point, we're going to touch on in a minute. So,
Okay.
just like with bringing someone's dead mom in to find these repressed enemies, to find these repressed enemies, to find these repressed memories,
Uh-huh.
this is how it works. Are you ready? This is how we find them. I spot the danger. Are you ready?
Yeah, this is my favorite game.
Let's say you get pulled in and they say,
I'm the
you're going to be possessed.
okay.
I have trauma. I'm upset. I'm at this retreat. You're going to help me get through it because you're going to be pulled into the room and they're going to say, do you agree with your free will to assume the consciousness of Heather's child self? And you're going to say yes. And you're going to sort of put your head down and you're going to take some deep breaths. And then you're going to be possessed by my child self. Okay. That's how that works.
Are these people getting compensated?
No, they're paying to be there.
So me being the person, I'm also with you at this retreat as an equal. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But you're fully on board with this, right? Like to you, you're a follower. That's not an outlandish thing for her to ask you to do because you're already bought in, right?
Right.
So then she's going to have two more people come in and she's going to say, do you agree with your free will to assume the consciousness of Heather's mom, to assume the consciousness of Heather's dad? And they're going to say, yes, it doesn't matter that my mom is still living. She will now be in this person's body. Her consciousness will. And now you, as child me, and those other two people as my parents, are going to go off and to the side of the room. I'm going to watch you, and you guys are just going to interact. And if all of a sudden you start screaming and crying, and my quote dad is yelling at you or saying he wants to hit you or kill you, and my quote mom is saying that she wants to set you on fire, I'm watching this going, okay, that's a real memory. I just don't remember it. And when it's all over, now I have to go, oh my gosh, my parents hated me and they abused me every day.
Bro.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Now I have to cut off my relationship with my parents. At no point in there is she going, well, let's not worry about whether or not this is real.
Right.
Instead, she's going, does
This
any of
is
this,
real.
does this feel, and I basically would sort of be expected to say, yeah, I mean, something about it does feel familiar. And now it's my memory. Now this is my truth because three people were quote possessed by me and
They're
my parents.
role playing.
And I would argue potentially projecting,
Probably.
improvising.
Probably.
And this is often what happens. So in one that I watched, the person in the father's role said, you know, I really actually felt that that he had abused the son.
Oh my God.
It's that kind of thing. And the person saying, when I was in the mom role, I felt like there was some inappropriate touching of her younger child. And it's hello. Okay. And now we're just saying this. And so now, like in this instance that I'm referring to, now there's this sister being, quote, faced with a, quote, memory of her brother being abused by her parents. Hello. So, and I want to drive this point a little bit further here. Teal's personal assistant also uncovers a memory of being abused by her father and her mom, knew and didn't do anything. But she also learns through Teal's help. This is where I go into like, are you sure, Jerry? Are you sure you don't care if it's real or not? Because she also learns through Teal's help that they would have big gatherings. Her parents would. They'd have big gatherings. And they built a barbecue pit and they lit it on fire and they put the children on top of it to punish them.
Wait, what? Wait, what children? Hold on. What children is she talking about? All right.
Herself.
Also, this is just, I gotta move around. So, I just. Okay, so
this is her uncovered memory is that she and her and other children were put on top of this barbecue like fire pit to punish them. Now, does she have any burns or scars from such an event? No, but that doesn't matter. This really happened, and she no longer speaks to her parent.
Okay, I'm still sticking with we're still grounded in something that could be real. That's my differentiating factor most of the time is, okay, could this technically have happened? Is it grounded in our quote unquote, okay.
Well, no, the thing is, it's like, yes, I am so with you, right? And listen, I'm not saying that people weren't sacrificing children, right? I'm not saying that this is not in the realm of possibilities. I'm saying I don't believe these things happened.
Mm,
And the big issue is that unlike you as a practitioner,
mhm.
despite her saying, I encourage them not to worry about whether or not it's real, that's not happening.
That's right, right,
She's not saying, well,
right.
perhaps that's a metaphor in your subconscious for feeling
Mm-hmm.
burned by your
Mm-hmm.
parents. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you felt rejected or what, like, we're not doing any of that. We're just going, holy shit, that's so crazy. Your parents burned children on fires. They put them on fires. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sure. I totally believe you. Now let's deal with that trauma. What? We just made trauma.
Yeah, so when are we gonna get to the therapist thing?
In a little bit.
Okay, all right. Okay, so she's saying that, is this a continual, do we know if this is like, this is making me think about is like in the Source Family episode when I talked to you about Father Yod and talked about him continue like building this narrative of like who he was and like, him killing these guys and like, I mean, he constantly brought that up. Do we know if Teal does this constantly where she like continually brings up over time to her followers like the things that have happened to her?
Absolutely. It's why they think she's so incredible because she's overcome so much.
Okay, so it's the narrative that keeps everybody locked in. Just like,
That and that she has also tried to commit suicide.
okay, okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Uh, Another way that Teal helps her personal assistant in this case is that she pokes little holes in her leg with a needle and then puts frog poison on her so that she like hallucinates and vomits. And that's supposed to help her kind of sort of like ayahuasca, that's supposed to help her
I definitely have
get
heard of
deep.
people going to frog ceremonies for
Yeah,
sure.
totally. But I think Teal's the last person I would trust to do something like that
Oh
with.
my god.
Um, anyway, Teal says that all these parents just say that their children have been seduced into a cult that she's leading so that they don't have to accept their child's leaving
She's
could
gonna
have anything to
answer.
do with them.
She's gonna answer for everything.
Well, of course she does. She has access to the Akashic records.
You're so right. What am I thinking?
I don't know. Teal calls herself an expert in human suffering.
Mm.
And because of all this trauma, she will tell you that she is more qualified than you are, Jerry. Teal has a friend around the time that she's at that coffee shop that I mentioned, where she's sort of like an MVP, VIP. And she tries to convince her that she was part of the same cult Teal was as a child. She says, we knew each other. And she's like, what are you talking about? And she says, yeah, Teal's abuser that I mentioned earlier was a huge influence on her. Like I said, she credits him in her first book. And she learned so much from this, quote, brilliant man. And he taught her everything about quantum physics, brainwaves, how to vanish into the woods. She says, if you were to tell me I have, 10 seconds, I could run out there. You'd never find me again. And I'm thinking, please prove it. But
I
apparently,
wish you would.
I wish you would, babes. But apparently he led a satanic cult. He alone sacrificed these 5 children. And Teal even went on the local news around 2014 in Utah to talk about this satanic cult. And when her friend continued, here we go, Jerry, to deny having any recollection of such a cult, Teal told her that she had suppressed memories and she needed to see her therapist, Barbara Snow.
This bitch, is this the bitch that I'm going to hold responsible for everything?
Enter Barbara. We need like pew pew.
Like a WWE, like.
You need to look her up because Barbara is somewhat infamous in the psych field because she was one of the, are you ready for this? She was one of the leading voices contributing to satanic panic. Because she basically convinced all of her clients that they were abused as children, often by Satanists, and just needed to remember.
Heather, I think that it is very important that we talk about the fact that Mormonism is a contributing factor of this. Are we bringing in that into here?
Do you know Mormons never come up here? But Barbara does.
Barbara is a Mormon.
She is?
Yes. She's a member of the Association of Mormon Counselors and Psychotherapists, the AMCAP, and a published research. centered on the issues of sexual abuse.
Okay, well, you know that I plan to do a Mormon episode, so I'll make sure to talk about Barbara.
Wait, okay, all right. I'm gonna click off of that. Pretend like I didn't see it. All right.
So, quick recap on the Satanic Panic. Geraldo Rivera really took off with it, 2020, even Oprah. But the book, which is now on my Audible TBR, called Michelle Remembers, sparked the whole event. And it came to a head with a court case in California of like these children who, or these adult at this point, but they believe that they were abused by a satanic cult when they were children.
Mm-hmm.
But it all revolved around these recovered memories of people being abused by Satanists and having to partake in infant sacrifices and even cannibalism. There is no scientific proof that we take trauma and push it so far into our subconscious as to forget it, let alone that we could then accurately recall it later. And I plan to also do a full episode on Satanic Panic, but this little nugget was important because it shows that something proven to be false is so closely connected to Teal and that Barbara was her therapist. But Teal says that she's special because she didn't have suppressed memories. She says that she was fully conscious of this cult all along and that she was in and even aware of being used as bait to get children to the cult to be sacrificed. Also, just a fun fact, Barbara was looked into. She was at risk of having her license like taken away or suspended, and so she had to kind of reel it back on a lot of this stuff. But as far as I know, she's still a practitioner with clients to this
When
day.
I tell you, I have both seen and heard of things that look, just because somebody has a license, jack shit. There are so many people doing so many terrible things, and then like the boards just don't hold people. It's so bad.
Mm-mm.
It's actually so bad. Okay, so Barbara is a demon. And that's what the episode is now going to be about, the fact that she's demonic.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it doesn't it start to make so much sense that it's like, okay, the one therapist that Teal ever trusted happens to be the same person who basically sparked the Satanic Panic by encouraging her a client to write a book about this. And like,
so Michelle Remembers Michelle is one of Barbara's clients.
Barbara was still one of the leading supporters of that whole piece.
Okay.
But the fact that she was known to tell people and encourage people to, quote, remember that they had been victims of a satanic cult, that they had had to participate in cannibalism and sacrifices and all of these things. And now here's Teal going, I was also in a satanic cult. And it was led by this guy named Doc, who I think is pretty brilliant, but also he was pretty bad.
Here's the thing. Here's what I'd like to say. There are people that have been raised in cults that abuse
1,000%.
children.
Yes.
So it really gets me heated at just the thought, right? I'm not even discrediting. I will not be discrediting her statements. I don't know if that actually happened or not, right? Not my place. Whatever. However, just the thought that also huge coincidence as well, right? Whatever. I'll leave it there. Just very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But just the thought of a therapist implementing this strategy causing whatever we want to call false memories, and then this person, now I'm like conflicted, right? Because I'm like, this, this does is challenges that same thing that we talked about. I don't remember what episode it was where I said, because I have worked with perpetrators and I have worked with people who have been the ones
Victims.
who have experienced the violence or experienced the victimization. And every perpetrator I've worked with, and this is, I'm not saying that this is everyone, let me be clear. Most of the people that I worked with that I did have access to their records, they at some point were also a victim. So this challenges our concept and it humanizes perpetrators. People don't like to go there. People don't like to talk about that stuff, but it is true. But what we can do is recognize someone has been victimized and has been abused or has been harmed, and also hold them responsible for their actions. Like we can do both.
Yes.
We can do both.
Both things can be true.
Right. So yeah. And I have so many feelings.
Well, and something that I think you were kind of getting to in the beginning of that is it's a very dangerous thing because it also risks discrediting people who were victims of being raised in a cult, right? Because it
Correct.
starts to make everyone go, oh, I don't know that any of that's real.
Right. And even that makes me frustrated because then I'm like, oh, but does that mean I'm then in turn saying discrediting her trauma and it may very well have happened?
It
Yeah,
ding ding.
it does
More
this like,
dings.
yes, it like does this weird cyclical thing where it's like, but something is so not right with this. I mean, like if something I can land on for certain is that this is very perverse and something is very not right and it is deeply disturbing.
Well, and I think this is where, like, let's level set briefly, right? We
Right.
have a girl who, as a child, felt very different, felt very ostracized, was diagnosed borderline,
Mm-hmm.
schizophrenic, and bipolar, then was sent off to China, told that she was special, could do all this energy work, then pulled back, then
Mm-hmm.
tried
Mm-hmm.
to commit suicide, then
Mm-hmm.
potentially abused. And here's the thing, all of those things, that's all trauma enough.
Yeah, and not to mention whoever this person was, right whenever you were talking about him, this like person who's telling her that she's special, of course, sends shivers down my spine because even I have
Oh,
been
the
put
one in
in
China.
situations. Yeah, because even I've been put in situations where someone telling you you're special is the threshold for exploitation.
Well, and then Doc tells her she's special too, right?
Right.
By saying,
Right.
it's not too much for me. I understand it.
That
And
is the MO of so many hurtful and harmful people.
well, Jennings found Doc and interviewed him
Mm-hmm.
because later Barbara encouraged Teal to press charges. And so she did go to the police, but ultimately they couldn't.
She loved getting people like I was just skimming that really quickly. She's involved in a lot of court cases.
Well, it was only when she started going to Barbara that she remembered the satanic cult piece of this abuse. And that's when she brought it to the police. And she even gave them her journals from when she was a kid. And they read the journals and were like, I don't know what we were supposed to find in here. Like, it doesn't
Oh
detail the
wow.
stuff that she said it detailed. And so ultimately, they didn't have enough to pursue any sort of litigation. And so when he's interviewed, the thing that really struck me is he sounds like Teal or vice versa, because he's talking about how he is such a master of all this energy work that he
Mm-hmm.
does acupuncture on cows, but he doesn't even have to use needles anymore.
You just look at the cow.
He just sends the energy, he moves the energy with his mind instead of having to even,
Use the needles.
uh-huh. And so it's very much like, oh, okay, well, I do believe that you were a mentor because she sounds like you. She speaks like you of like, I can
Mm-hmm.
do all these things. You wouldn't understand it. I'm very, very good.
And then
Okay.
I get so, and then that, yeah, we could literally talk about this for 10 hours. And then I think to myself, I don't want to discredit any cultural practices that may very well
You see what I
use
mean?
things like energy work
This is what I'm saying
as
is there
part
are
of their
moments that I'm like,
healing.
but I'm with this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, I mean, also too, it's like everything has been so again perverted and like westernized and appropriated that at this
Mm-hmm.
point it's just a giant melting pot of like metaphysical practices. And a lot of people forget to trace the origin of the work that they're doing, which I think is incredibly harmful or can be, not inherently, but it can be. But my point being, I don't discredit any kind of energy work of,
Yeah.
there are ancient practices that I will not question,
Yeah.
but this kind of stuff, especially, I would imagine, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is Doc White?
I don't know.
Is he in the he's in the is it an audio
I mean, what does that mean? He sounded white. I don't know what that means, but
is it not in the he's not in the documentary?
no, we don't know who he is. He's never been
Wait, who is the
named.
person he found who he
Well, it's
found?
him because he got his name from Teal, but because
Mhm.
he was never named publicly, he didn't want to put him on blast on the podcast. So I don't know
But
who he
But
is.
Jennings did talk to him,
Yeah. And his
and he
voice, I mean, he's interviewed audibly on the podcast,
that's what I
but
was trying to get to. Okay, so he was okay. Whatever. You get what I'm saying.
yeah.
Oh my god. Okay.
So I feel like we'll circle back to actually a few of those things. First, let's talk about From Cult Recovery 101, I got a checklist of what characteristics to look at when determining if
Oh,
something
this
is
is
a cult.
great. Okay.
And so I'm going to read them to you, and I want you to just sort of, I don't know, maybe raise a hand, do a little ding, whatever, if you feel like any of these might apply. The first one, the group is focused on a living leader to whom members seem to display excessively zealous, unquestioning commitment.
Ding.
The group is preoccupied with bringing in new members.
Oh, I don't know about if that one's the case yet. It seems to be, though,
We'll
considering.
talk more about it, but I would say very much so. There's actually a moment when Teal's manager is looking at their Facebook followers, and they want to get as many as, was it Joel Osteen? They're like trying to match numbers. So yeah, I mean, the group is preoccupied with making money.
Mm-hmm. $500 a pop, I would imagine so.
Yeah. Questioning, doubt, and dissent are discouraged or even punished.
Yeah. Okay.
Mind-numbing techniques such as meditation, chanting, speaking in tongues, denunciation sessions, debilitating work routines are used to suppress doubts about the group and its leader.
Mm-hmm.
The leadership dictates, sometimes in great detail, how members should think, act, and feel. For example, members must get permission from leaders to date, change jobs, get married. Leaders may prescribe what types of clothes to wear, where to live, how to discipline children, and so forth. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
The group is elitist, claiming a special exalted status for itself, its leader, and members. For example, the leader is considered the Messiah. Yeah. The group has a polarized us versus them mentality, which causes conflict with the wider society.
Mm-hmm.
Ding. The group's leader is not accountable to any authorities. The group teaches or implies that its supposedly exalted ends justify means that members would have considered unethical before joining the group. I don't know, for example, encouraging people to kill themselves. That might be a little unethical.
Maybe unethical, yeah.
The leadership induces guilt feelings in members in order to control them. Members' subservience to the group causes them to cut ties with family and friends and to give up
Definitely
personal
that
goals
one.
and activities.
Yeah.
Ding a ding a ding a ding a ding a ding a ding.
What was her, like, did everyone live where they, you know what I mean? Like, where did everybody live? Did this turn into like a traditional cult, or was this like virtual cult?
Well, present tense, because still happening, but
Oh, right.
Teal lives in a house with her manager, her assistant, her child, her best friend, but he's no longer there. We'll talk about that. And someone
Like, he's
else.
no longer with us?
No, he's no longer with her because
Okay.
he had to deviate. Yeah. But she does live with a house full of people. And then when she's hosting a retreat, everyone's pretty much just like in her house.
I have to take a pee break.
Okay. I'll do the same thing.
Okay.
Changed chairs.
I have there's a new, I might have already told you about it. There's a new Swedish candy store, and we'll have to go when you're here. And it's, have you heard of Bubs?
No,
Oh
only my
God.
doggy.
It's the best candy you'll ever eat.
And you're not
It's
allergic
like,
to it?
No, they're like puffy, cloudy, and then you get a bag. I've eaten all over half.
Oh my God.
But like,
we'll
they're
have
all
so much fun.
these little skulls. You go in and you get the shovel and you
Sigil
like
freak.
scoop it and put it in the bag, and you pay by the pound. It's so good. Anyway.
Yes, put it on our to-do list. Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Okay, ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Jumping around a little bit timeline-wise, in 2012, she founds Teal Eye, and she wants it to be all about positive world change. And she wants it to be so powerful and so pure that no one can come up against it, not even the CEO, which would be her, directors, etc. Her manager was a tennis player and coach in Germany. And she called him because he was, I think, like a client, if you will. He like followed her. And she said, I have an intuition. You've been managing tennis players. You're going to manage me. And he said, okay. And he moved to the US, and then he does that.
Do we know if he still does? He's still.
Yeah. Her core people are still her core people.
I wonder how much they get paid. Like, I wonder.
Oh, nothing. I don't think. No, I don't think that they get paid. I think that they're just like, they're happy.
Wait. Okay, well, I was about to ask, like, in a joking way, like, how much would you settle to be a part of the bit, right? And like, how much would you sell your soul for? But if they're not even getting paid, then what the fuck?
Her team dedicates their life to the mission and will sacrifice anything for it. And she says that everyone has to have this attitude to get to her altitude. Okay. She has employees who have dropped out of college for her, quit jobs, everything. But let's get into the allegations because, of course, we're talking about her, right? There was some heat happening. The podcast had come out. There was a Vice article about her, that she was a cult leader, and people are saying she's a cult leader. And of course, again, she's got these people saying she's a suicide catalyst. Multiple people that have followed her have killed themselves. This is not a coincidence, right? So they hire a private investigator who is tasked with writing an independent, unbiased report on what she finds around whether or not the accusations that Teal is directly responsible for multiple suicides is true, and if she is or is not a cult.
Who hires?
Teal and her
Teal
team.
hires the PI?
Yes, which I found unbelievable. Like the narcissistic behavior there of like, who
She
could
thought
ever?
she thought she could ask someone to come do this, and that she has the power over to actually get them to say that she's not a cult leader. That's wild.
It's incredible. And this woman, who's adorable, by the way, actually talks to the director of the American Association of Suicidology. And he says, a video where she's saying, visualize your suicide when you have no idea what the emotional state is of the person on the other side of that screen is very dangerous because there is no quality control and you have no idea if that's going to work out. And he says, it's just not defensible.
Right.
And I thought that was very poignant. It's just not defensible. I don't care how great you are at answering questions, Teal.
Yep.
Stop.
Yeah.
But he also says, if 3 people out of the millions of people who have seen her content killed themselves, you can't necessarily say it's because of her, which I felt like was way too gracious, but I'll allow it. One woman that the PI interviews, I think, really nails why someone could decide to follow Teal. She had a bad experience with multiple therapists, something, again, like I mentioned, you've talked about before. We mentioned it before in this episode. And apparently she even had a therapist at one point that told her she was a doormat. Yeah, not great. And she wanted to change therapists again, but financially and with her insurance, she just couldn't. And so, she found Teal and she felt like Teal was the right person for her. But the investigator quickly starts to feel that, well, Teal's really pretty, so maybe she's automatically a target. The word cult is pretty easy to throw at her. And so she's really, well, don't worry, because she's like, maybe that's the problem. Because so far she's talking to people that are like, well, you can't necessarily blame her. Well, she really helped me, so she's like, okay. But I also want to be clear. I want to take a pause and say that the idea of Teal is not my problem. I do not have a problem with self-help guru, a spiritual guru. I don't care if they have psychology degrees or not. That's fine. But they aren't trauma informed, right? Like you've talked about before. They're not that different from my spin instructor, right? That's just saying like, you go get them, girl. It's the same idea, just that one you're paying for because you feel like they're really, really good at giving you that message. If someone goes to confession with a priest and feels that they're less depressed or overwhelmed after penance, that's not a problem just because it wasn't the advice or instruction of a therapist. Right. So you're a therapist. I have a therapist. I'm not saying only therapists can ever have the answer for anything.
Yeah. That also gets into the cultural aspect of things. Of course. Becoming a therapist has a lot of inaccessibility, financially, whatever. There's a lot. It can sometimes be interchangeable with something like white privilege. Sure. I'll leave it at that. There are a lot of many different offshoots that we could explore there, but there are plenty of people who, again, ancient practices, cultural significance, have been healers way longer than the credentialing people of this country. Do you know?
Yes.
Like the licensing boards, like,
and that's the piece, right? Is like, it's not
right.
It's not that the idea of her, I don't have an issue with. It's the recklessness that I feel she operates with, that I feel is problematic. And the fact that I believe she is implanting memories in people and allowing them to instead of becoming trauma informed, she's pushing more trauma on other people and projecting a lot of trauma on other people. But But I also can only be so apologetic for her because she has this thing called the non-negotiables document. So let's get into this. The private investigator finds out about this and she's like, what is that? And Teal's best friend at this point, Blake, who, if you remember, I kind of mentioned it briefly earlier, that when she'd gotten out of the psych ward, as she called it, she drove straight to his house. He really took care of her. They fell in love. They dated briefly. He has sort of been like a dad to her son. They're very, very close. But he actually shares it with the private investigator because he doesn't realize that maybe that's not going to help their case. Because here's what's in the non-negotiables document that everyone agrees to when they become part of Teal's inner circle. 1, you cannot put your own family first. Teal comes first. Next up, the priority of the entire community is whatever is most important to Teal.
Oh.
Next, no personal boundaries that have a negative impact on Teal. Next, you will now be in the world of fame, so anyone you introduce to the community could rip her reputation apart or blackmail her. Next, your life won't resemble normal. If you want normal, do not be a part of the inner circle.
Wow. Okay.
Teal compares it to joining the military. But as the PI points out, most of these requirements, if this were like a workplace, a company, would be illegal. And remember that checklist that we just went over? It's checking every single box. The outer circle, and I do agree with this for the most part. The outer circle is relatively not culty. I think it's dangerous. I think it's problematic.
So the outer circle would be, for example, the people who pay to go. Okay, got it.
Yes. So it's more so just spiritual. Do I think it's dangerous practices and stuff? Yes, but I do not think that in and of itself is a cult. I think it's just reckless. But the inner circle, very culty. So the PI that they hired to basically defy the Vice article finds instead that it's a cult. And Teal is not happy with that. Not happy at all. She's like, well, we can't publish this.
Because it said it's a cult.
Yeah, and the PI is really disappointed. She's like, I put so much work into this, and to know that it will never see the light of day is like really disappointing. And of course I was like, publish it, put it somewhere.
So we don't know what it said. Oh my God.
So another cult expert in California cool job, talks about Teal's dramatic therapy as a way to manipulate vulnerable people. And he says they can get very unstable, and that's what she's counting on. Cult leaders will always get their people to what I call reframe their lives. They interpret their lives so they see everything from before the cult as messed up, and only by staying with the cult leader will it get straightened out. And that tracks because don't forget that many of Teal's followers, inner and outer circle, will tell you that they're only alive because of her.
And I really genuinely can't help but think about the fact that she's just reenacting what happened between her and her therapist with everyone else.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
That's
everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, this is because that person, interderogatory statement here.
Okay, but this is where, again, there are moments just like that where I'm like, God, if she had just gotten the right help, right? If she had just gotten the right help. But then this next thing happens.
Oh God.
And I'm like, I can't give you any excuses.
This is just whiplashing us back and forth. Okay.
She does this thing called water breathing. Do you want to maybe just take a guess? What do you think that kind of modality might look like?
Water breathing?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the first thing I thought of was waterboarding.
Okay, well, ding, ding, you got it right away. She drowns people.
What?
I watched this. It made me actually so upset. I was like, I don't know. I had to split this documentary up over so many nights because it was so hard. She holds them under the water. They're pulled up. Well, Teal doesn't. Let me be very clear. She's standing off watching like a creepy little hawk.
It's giving Manson. I didn't do
right.
it.
She never does it. Her followers do it.
Yeah.
So she's standing off watching. This girl that they're doing it to, they hold her under the water. She comes up. She doesn't have enough time to actually get a breath. Shoved back down, held under, pulled up. She doesn't have enough time to catch a breath. Pushed back under until she passes out. And I want to talk about this girl for a minute because I really thought, Jerry, that she was going to be my hero of this documentary because she comes to one of Teal's retreats and she's been there before. And she says, I'm really mad at you. And Teal says, what's that?
She says, why are you still here?
She says, you said that everything was going to get better for me, and it has gotten so much worse. She said, I'm more depressed now than I've ever been, lonelier than I've ever been. I'm blah, 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 blah. And Teal is basically like, well, you're not doing the work. You're not doing it. And they kind of have this little back and forth. And she's like, that's bullshit. You're bullshit. I don't buy this. Da, 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 da. And then she goes upstairs, locks herself in a room. And when some of her inner circle, like Blake and his fiance, go in there, she basically tells them, like, if I don't feel better by the time I leave this time, I am going to kill myself. The response to that is for her to say, we need to do water breath. And so this is the girl that they do this to until she passes out. When she regains consciousness, she looks up at Teal and says, I love you. And Teal says, I love you too, and kisses her on the head.
Okay, so Stockholm.
I mean,
That's what's
it's everything. It's like I'm in love with my abuser. I need her to fix it. I can't take accountability.
I have permanent brain damage now because she's restricted my fucking airflow and tried to kill me.
So back to Blake for a moment.
Oh my God.
And back to like the cult inner circle stuff. When he gets married to a girl in Germany that he met that had come to like a Teal workshop.
Oh my God. I bet Teal loses her mind.
She did not like when he decided to propose. She literally was like, how does it feel now to finally have to let go of your attraction to me? Oh, girl. And anyway, so her name is Juliana.
She's such a masochist.
Once they get married, Teal tells them, you know, you really can't travel. And Juliana says, well, I would like to go back to Germany from time to time to see my family and friends. And Teal's like, that really can't happen because this isn't a normal life. And, you know, we don't really have time for that. And it's like very distracting. And Teal tells followers who feel they need to reconnect with family and friends that they've been gaslit to think that way, and actually they just need the company of other followers. She has told her followers that their parents didn't love them, and even though they disagreed, since Teal is psychic, they had to believe her.
Akashic records.
One girl she told this to moved out of her parents' house, fell into a depression, and attempted suicide. That's the same girl that then confronted Teal and that they drowned. That whole thing. Teal actually, you know how I said that she like locked herself in a room and said, if I'm not better, I'm going to kill myself. Most people would be like, we have to intervene. You know, we need to.
Teal's like, do it.
No, it maybe worse because Teal, well, first of all, when she confronts her and says, my life didn't get better, it got worse, Teal says, no, it is better. And she says, well, you know, I don't think so. But anyway, Teal says, you're blackmailing me. When her team says she has threatened to kill herself, Teal says, great. So now she's blackmailing me because if she goes home and she kills herself, everyone will say, oh, well, she was just at a Teal Swan workshop and then she came back and killed herself. And so it's obviously Teal's fault. That's how she responds to this.
It's so interesting to me. And by interesting, I mean vile, that she says the quiet part out loud. Like there is no guessing what is going on. She's like, you're gaslit into thinking that your parents that you need to go. It's like you're just projecting and saying the thing that you're doing. Yeah, that's actually like a psychological. That's actually a method, which I guess if she does that well.
Well, and a big focus of the documentary is how Blake finally has to choose his wife over Teal, because there's this moment where Teal sits her down in an intervention. Because remember, Teal's psychic. Teal can see your thoughts. And she says, I've written a list of everything that you think about me. Because she's like, I want you to tell me what you think about me. Because it's clear as the viewer that Juliana is finally starting to go, I thought she helps people and I don't think she does. And
I'm in the bad place.
I'm in the bad place. And so she tells Teal, like, well, I think you're very powerful and I think you have a lot of power. And she goes, all right, since you're not going to be honest, here's what you think about me. You think I'm too masculine. You think I use my sexuality to my advantage. You think that, blah, 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 blah. And she like rambles all these things. Yeah. That's what I thought too. I'm like, oh, these are all your own insecurities.
Yep.
And then she makes all of her inner circle say, what do you think Juliana thinks about me? What do you think she thinks about me? And one of them is like, I think she hates you. It's a whole thing. And so it comes down to Blake has to choose between Teal, who has been his best friend to an almost inappropriate place for half of his life, or his wife.
Whoa.
And he does ultimately choose his wife over Teal.
Thank God.
And yeah, I mean, and so because this happened and because it really rocked Teal, because she did not think that he was going to choose his wife, she is so focused on the I ego of it all that she tells her team, okay, we got to sit down and we got to come up with some new rules, like a contract, because I'm not protected.
She can't handle this level of rejection.
She tells her team, I don't want you to find partners.
Yeah.
She says, we're going to set a boundary.
I am your partner.
Yeah, she says if the partner that they find is incompatible to her mission, she basically gets to say nope. And they all are just nodding and going, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, fine. I'll never have a partner. That's fine. So they write this contract, and Teal says, I need to be able to get rid of you if you bring someone in that's dangerous. And they even agree that none of them, even the ones that are partnered, none of them can have children.
Oh, because the children would be more important than Teal.
No, because Teal says, I can't be kept awake until 3 a.m. the night before an interview by a screaming baby.
But we're acknowledging that it's multiple things,
yeah.
I'm sure.
And what was really interesting before that little intervention I mentioned is that there's a moment where Teal and Juliana are sitting on the balcony, and she looks at Juliana and she says, what would it take for you to go back to Germany? And Juliana interpreted it as her just like being curious. I interpreted it as like, what do I have to do to get rid of you?
Yeah.
And she doesn't really hesitate. And she says, I think what's coming up for me would be if I felt completely alone. And so then Teal has this interview that basically makes her completely alone. And well, what do you know? She goes back to Germany. So anyway.
Wow.
And something else that's unique about Teal is that she says that she never wanted to get into this field. She just started speaking to what was the most natural talent of hers.
Manipulating people?
And she says she blew up on YouTube with her Teal tribe, right? And people found her paintings, which I do have to admit are like pretty cool. And she says that while she has all of these quote lost toy followers, that's what she calls them. They're lost toys.
What?
The people who critique her just can't handle it. They're just not ready for her. And it is a business. I mean, like I said earlier, her manager wants to make sure that she has the same number of followers as Eckhart Tolle and Deepak Chopra and Tony Robbins. But her business, as she describes it, is the quote opposite of the pharmaceutical companies. She says that a lot of people who claim to want to heal and who come to healers just want a quick fix. That if they were given a button and said, push this button and you'll feel better, they would. And that's why the pharmaceutical companies are doing so well today. But she's in the business of healing, not of people feeling immediately better. And she encourages people to look at the world through the lens of trauma. So the question isn't what's wrong with you, but what happened to you? If you're triggered, there's a root trauma around it, and it happened before age 8. That's according to her, it happened before age 8. And getting to that root trauma is, as we've already pointed out in this episode, a little bit like EMDR, because you are trying to identify the first time you felt that feeling, but without the real process and structure. And Jennings, to his credit, did actually sit with someone who had completed the completion process, and so is now a practitioner and charges for this. And he wanted to figure out why he so recently was really triggered by being claustrophobic on a bus in New York. And he wound up identifying a memory around age 7 of being stuffed into a trunk by his cousins. And he's encouraged to have a talk with 7-year-old him. And it's interesting because he even says, I didn't really remember that happening until I did this. But again, to me, that was sort of like, okay, well, that's not that different from EMDR. That's not that different than me going, oh, yeah, I do remember feeling this way as a kid.
Yeah.
But it's not always like that. A lot of times it is, oh, your parents did something terrible to you. But I think it's also different to have a conversation like that of sink into that feeling and find where you first felt it than it is to say, okay, these people are now possessed by your family and oh, they're confessing to abusing you. Very different experiences.
Very, very different. Yeah.
Teal says that she wants the process around suicide she takes people on to be adopted in the mainstream psychology field.
Okay.
She says she didn't think the concept of getting people to entertain the idea of suicide would get people to commit suicide. And she said that she's been really impacted by this because she can't make money the way she needs to.
Teal?
She
Poor
wonders,
Teal.
she wonders out loud if marrying a multi-billionaire will be the only way to secure herself financially. She makes no mention of guilt or concern over deaths. Like people are like, oh, someone else that followed you just killed themselves. And she's like, God, what am I going to do?
Stain on my name.
Mm-hmm. There's a former member of her inner circle who left that the PI identified and interviewed. And Teal had told him that if I were you, I would just kill myself because there's no hope for you.
You know, it's just, it just like also just doesn't make any logical sense for her to say that completing suicide is not an issue and then directly being like, oh, this is not a good look.
Very nice point. Yeah.
Like she's contradicting herself.
Yeah. And there was something that I couldn't quite shake while I was watching The Deep End was there's another woman who asks, how do I know if my time is up? Because she says, I can't seem to commit to life or death, which again, we know from a suicidologist, that's normal. But as a Teal follower, you think that it has to be definitive one way or another. And Teal says, well, if you're still asking that question, then your time isn't up. And she says, you'd be amazed how many people are struggling. And the house lights come on. And she asks the audience to raise their hand if they're struggling. And of course,
everyone
does.
Hand. Yeah, of course. Which can also in turn be like, oh, community, we're all collectively struggling.
Because of course you are. That's how you all wound up in this room paying to listen to her talk.
Of course.
And she says, you know, it saddens me. She says, it saddens me. You know, I fly around the world and I see so many people that are lonely. But these are all people who are looking for a guru for this very reason. So she's making her own echo chamber to show how many people are hurting, to make it seem like the whole world is hurting, so that she can be like, see, I'm the only one that can help anybody because none of these people have found help so far. It just like, it made me so mad. Because remember, she's also saying, I have these special sixth sense abilities that make me uniquely qualified. But she's not qualified. She's not allowed to do this work, right? In 2017, she was actually investigated by the Utah Department of Commerce Licensing Division, which becomes especially ironic when I tell you that she stamped the completion process certificates with a replica of the Utah state seal. A mental health professional reviewed her content and was, surprise, very concerned. And so the state issued her a citation for practicing mental health without a license. But this happened right as she moved to Costa Rica. So the fine was ultimately passed to a debt collector, and Teal's current husband was like, yeah, sorry, we don't even live there anymore, so it doesn't matter.
She just evaded it.
Mm-hmm. And
never heard that before from a cult leader.
Ugh. And so I'll leave you with a quote before we get into any comments, questions, concerns you may have. Something that Teal says that I thought was poignant. People don't go looking for God unless people have failed them.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Right?
But she would be God in this case.
Yes,
right?
She's God.
If you have any questions or want to dive deeper in anything, I guarantee you I can answer them.
Okay, this is something I haven't said. This revolves around, because I'm really hung up on this Barbara Snow character. Now. It's making me think about the whole Ruby Frankie situation with the therapist she had. What's her name? I forgot what her name is.
I can picture her, but I can't think of her name either.
God, I'm sure everyone's like, yeah, whatever. I'm sure everyone listening knows exactly what I'm talking about, because how could you not know what this literally just happened? But my point, it's I have so many thoughts at the same time. Okay, I'm going to stick in my original point, and if the other ones come up organically, then that's fine, whatever.
Okay.
This Barbara Snow therapist person, who is the root of all evil, First of all, would love to know why she's doing this, but that's in trauma inception. This satanic panic stuff, and specifically this narrative around children being sacrificed. Did you not think of political things here?
I did actually a little bit, because it mirrored so much of like QAnon stuff and,
That
all
is,
the
yes.
baby blood and all of that. And
Uh-huh.
to me, it just felt sort of, it's always just regurgitated stuff, just in a different package.
Yeah, like the
You
worst.
know?
What's the worst possible thing? I don't know if I ever told you this. How I first heard about QAnon. Have we talked about this at all?
Oh, actually, maybe we have. I feel like we have.
Yeah. So I encouraged this person to record a session where this person who is traveling around from church to church to teach people about this children's sacrifice thing happening, and the plasma that they're consuming of the children. They recorded it, brought it to me, and I listened to it. And this person was up there giving a sermon, and I listened to the whole thing. It was hours long, broke it up over time. And they were spewing. When you started talking about this, is the first person I thought of, is listening to them spew this about the children's sacrifices and the right. Of course, whatever. I don't know what overlap there is, but point being, it's just really interesting that those are the same messages.
Well, because I think, who is more vulnerable than a child?
Right.
So, of course,
The
everyone's going to
worst
get
of
the
the
most
worst
upset if someone's doing something
about
to
children.
children.
Right. And this like specifically sacrificing children.
Yeah, because then if you make it anti-religion by making it the devil,
Right.
it's satanic. They're worshiping evil and hurting our babies. They're hurting our kids. Well, now everyone's mad, because how can you not be mad? You're either mad because you're religious and because they're children, or you're mad because it's children, right? Like everyone's got a stake in it. And so it's easy to then go, oh, look at me leading the masses.
Saving the children, saving God's children, or saving the children. It just it is so white savior. It's so, again, I keep saying this, but perverse. It's so perverted. There are people who have actually experienced things that are unfathomable and deeply traumatic.
And it's so hard to verbalize how I feel in my brain about this, because I am not saying that something as outlandish as being bait to lure children to a satanic cult, I'm not saying that's impossible.
I've
but
even heard of things like that. To me, it's outlandish, but as soon as I heard it, I'm like, oh, that could happen.
And that's the thing. It's like that to me. I don't have an issue with the claim. I have an issue with the detail around the claim of like, and I had to do it every single night, and then I snuck into my bed, and then I went to school and no one was ever suspicious. And also I had to be buried in a hole every day for hours and no one was ever suspicious. It's like, it's so hard to say that, because then I feel like I also need to like walk it back and be like, but like if that did happen to someone, I like, never doubt the victim, right? Because that's the thing. I don't doubt victims. I doubt Teal Swan. And that's why I also want to be careful to say that I don't doubt that she was abused. I think something traumatic happened to her.
Definitely.
I just don't know that I believe it was this. And I think that's largely because of Barbara. But same with like her personal assistant. I don't think that because of, quote, possessions that she witnessed, that now it's fact that she was put on a barbecue pit made to punish children.
Right.
I'm sorry. I don't.
Right.
Now, if she had sat with a licensed therapist and did a lot of trauma work and was like, no, I mean, I always kind of knew that was there, but I didn't want to go back to it. All right. But again, I bet she'd have some pretty gnarly burns too from being placed on fire every night.
Right.
Like there are just things that
yeah. And I don't necessarily think or believe that anything to me, nothing has to be proven,
Right. But that is the difference in you being, first of all, trauma informed and licensed, and her not. And when she and Barbara went to the police and reported all of this, The police actually said at first that they did believe her because of how detailed it was, which of course is usually the opposite of what you hear. But allegedly
Right.
that's what happened.
Yeah.
But they did a physical exam on Teal. And of course, so many years later, they weren't expecting to find any sort of proof of like sexual trauma. But based on her account, they did expect to see physical trauma because of what her retelling had been. And they found nothing for what that's worth.
It's so tricky. This is making me think of a couple other episodes we've done, and that it challenges so much of the what you typically see, in that it is or it isn't. It's black and it's white. There's no nuance. I think we've got a little bit of everything.
I do too. I do too.
And then that in turn is just so challenging because, and I experience this feeling, I wouldn't say often, but I feel like I've been here several times of whether in my personal life, in my clinical experience, it is so, I show up in the room, I'm still a human. I'm still, half of my work whenever I'm not in front of a client is working through what's coming up for me during the session, and like working on my own countertransference so that my client doesn't experience it for me. So a lot of that is me working through stuff that's coming up and what's for them and what's not for them. And this feels like it's doing that in the same part of my brain because there's like a couple filters happening. Especially us talking about something, and everything we talk about, I would say is sensitive. And that's part of the again, challenge of like what we're doing. And to just acknowledge that someone is both causing harm and has been harmed.
That.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling. And it's like, it's unsettling. It's uncomfortable because oftentimes it forces people to acknowledge that they're that too.
Well, and I think something that we've also touched on before, and that I hope everyone is cognizant of, is that I think that she, when she was diagnosed with all those things, likely could have sought real treatment for that. And if she had stuck to it and been supported much better, that, yeah. But I think that just because I believe that she does have an imbalance chemically, and I wish that she had gone down a different path, does not excuse her from doing what she's doing, because I also have a mental imbalance. I have a chemical imbalance in my brain. I'm not encouraging people to take their life and treat it as a reset button. I'm not telling people who come to me that have never had suicidal ideation, actually you have. Actually you are right now and you need to tap into it. No. So that cannot be any sort of excuse. And I think to your point, right, it's all these things can happen simultaneously. You can be a victim and you can be a perpetrator.
Definitely.
We can feel bad for the part of you that is a victim, and we can judge the part of you that is a perpetrator,
or hold them accountable.
Yeah, we
their
contain
actions.
Multitudes, as do you, right? Like it. Yes,
I want to vilify this person so much. I have. Whatever. She will call her a villain. And then when I take into consideration the things that have happened to her, I can feel myself waver, like we've already talked about. This is something that I'm actually working on in therapy right now, is staying in my own decisions, staying in my own self, staying in my own energy, whatever we want to call it, when I'm faced with contradictions to what that part of me knows.
Yeah.
Right. Or the decision or whatever. And I have been, over the last several years, I would say specifically this last several months, learning to make room and like widen out my emotional bandwidth so that I can hold contradiction. And it is so hard. it makes my brain hurt to consider all these things. And now here I am like, oh, Barbara's the demon. And so now I've like vilified her, right? This is so good. Even though I knew who Teal Swan was, and I didn't say this in the front end, but as you were describing the algorithm, I don't remember, because of the work that I do, there's all sorts of things that I look up. And she has come across my algorithm years ago.
Well, and that's the point I wanted to make too, as you were speaking just now, is like, it is, we talked in your bodies episode, right, about how it's really important to kind of trace the ethical origins of something that you're spending your money on. It's also so important to really treat the content you consume with care,
Yeah.
even if you just have it sort of in the background or whatever, because you're still taking that in.
Or you fall asleep to it. That's a big one.
Yes.
That's a really big one. I've had to be really careful about that.
Yeah. And, you know, if she comes across your feed and you're like, I mean, okay, I don't really think anything she's saying is that problematic. I kind of like the way that she's just like, no bullshit, whatever. That's fine. But then also take a beat and maybe
proceed with caution.
Yeah, like kind of sort through that and don't just go, I'm going to watch everything.
Teal Swan LLC.
Well, it would be TLI LLC. But founded in 2014. But that's the thing, is like she, her Facebook groups are so active, and it's, you know, everything from, hey guys, really excited about the retreat, to I woke up this morning and really wanted to die. And we just have all these people that are only certified based on her, that are commenting and quote helping. And that's the other thing too that drives me so crazy, is like, once you've gone through the completion process, once you've done all your shadow work, once you've uncovered all your memories, once you've dealt with your trauma, if she deems you worthy, because she doesn't do it for everyone, but if she deems you worthy, she certifies you as a completion process practitioner. And it means that now you're on her website, and they're all over the country, all over the world, actually. And you pay them about $150 an hour, much like you would pay a therapist. And they do therapy work with you based on how Teal has laid it out. And that is so scary to me.
Yeah, I see it. I'm not, when I tell you, I mean, genuinely, I've seen the harm that it causes. Now, I'm not going to say anything further than that, but nothing disgusts me more.
Well, and something that she talks about so much is like shadow work, shadow work, shadow work, shadow work. I am kind of to the point where like that term alone makes me want to vomit a little bit, because if you're talking about shadow work as a practitioner, you mean it as one thing. If you're talking about shadow work as someone that helps people do past life regressions, that's a whole different thing. Yeah. If you're talking about shadow work as Teal Swan, that's a whole different thing. If you're talking about shadow work as my yoga instructor the other night, that's a whole other thing, right? But it's this idea that there's a part of you within that can kind of give you answers that you're kind of suppressing. Don't go chasing shadows unless you know what you're doing, because I can't imagine walking out of that and going, oh my God, I hate my whole family. I'm going to divorce my partner. I regret ever having a child. I'm going to abandon him. Because everything I'm saying is things that people have done.
Yeah, and it doesn't go without saying, and we already know this, is that the people who are coming in to get help are the most vulnerable people. So you're already at a point where you're looking for answers. You're looking for someone to help you. Some people are looking for a guide. Most people are looking for a guide. People are looking for, I have people coming to me all the time wanting me to make decisions for them. And I'm like, that's not what we're doing here. Like, I'm not going to decide for you. Let's have a conversation about it. I'll help you work through it, but I'm not deciding anything for you. I'm here to do the quite opposite, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. This was, I just looked at the time and I'm like, I cannot believe this much time has gone by.
But I knew it would be long, and I'm fine with it just being a long episode, because
people can pause,
I have to listen.
We took a break.
That's the thing. Yeah. I had to take breaks. I've always had to do that with stuff about her, because and not because I'm triggered or activated, but because I get so mad.
Yeah, it's infuriating.
And I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah. again, I hope that nobody walks away from this and feels like I just regurgitated things that like you could go consume elsewhere. But I just felt like of all the things that I've read and seen, that specific documentary, because there are different ones, and the Gateway podcast really do the best of making like one cohesive picture. And so to me, it just made sense to kind of put it all together in this timeline.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just
it's already frustrating enough whenever when we talk about things and when we bring them up and we're like, that happened. And then it's a whole other thing, kind of like exactly like the first episode and a couple other episodes where it's like, oh, and they're still doing it.
Yes, present tense. Yes.
No, I feel like, oh my God. Is Barbara Snow still practicing?
Yes.
What's happening? This is so. And it really does highlight. Two thoughts. One, I have been thinking recently of how can I formulate, share tips, things that, in my opinion, or just even using ethical guidelines, depending on the specific licensure that your therapist has, breaking it down for people. Hey, this is not normal. And if this happens, it is a red flag. If this happens, it is an orange flag. If this happens, it is a yellow flag. And these are the green flags. Like because informed consent is so important. And when people go to therapy, there is this inherent trust, and people assume, just like we do with things that are put in place in order to, that are respectable or that have a process and have a procedure. I don't want to
checks and balances.
Yes. I simultaneously don't want to discredit therapists, and at the same time want to make it very clear, you guys, there are not a lot of checks and balances for therapists. There is no ultimate overseer, and there are no, there's the board of ethics, there's the different licensure boards, there's definitely those checks and balances, but there's no one in your session with you when you're with the therapist to say, hey, that's not okay. That they are emotionally enmeshing themselves with you, or they're falsely implanting memories in your brain like a monster. There's nobody there. So, anyways, I think it's really important to talk to your friends about your other people that that they're in therapy, and be like, hey, if you ever feel weird, like, hey, my therapist did this thing and I don't know, post it on social media. Hey, my therapist did this thing. Do you guys have this experience too? Anything from like, oh, they text me from their personal number, all the way to like, oh, they shared with me something that their other client said to them and used their name, or right, like even little stuff like that. Like that's
trust your instincts.
Yes, exactly. Well, I really enjoyed this and simultaneously hated everything about it. So good job.
Yeah, that's kind of how I expected this to go. Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening. Cool.
See y'all next week.
Great. Bye.
Bye.